guys, and welcome back to my channel. I've missed y'all, but I've been busy. Busy is the season that I'm in, and so my videos and check-ins have been a lot less, and that's probably how it's gonna be for the next 6 to 8 months, because I'm in the second year of the MSW program, and I got a lot of stuff to get done so that I can walk across that stage and be a double eagle. You heard me? Today I just wanted to check in and give a little intro to my second interview out of my 3-part series where I've been interviewing therapists for Coffee and Consent. This second interview I did with Steph, and I'm just so grateful for the space that we created, for the conversation that was had, for the relationship building that was done, and I hope that you guys enjoy this video.
I love that it's intimate.
Right.
No.
Right, I was like,
Every
is this
time
weird?
it's been a couple, no, not me.
No.
Every time it's been a couple different faces, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's always like a pretty small crowd, but get there.
I like it. I like it.
Thank you guys for being here. I'm Nadia. I know everyone in the room except for you. What's your name again?
Sunshine.
Sunshine. Oh, you're getting married?
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations! Thank you for spending your last days before being a married lady here.
I have so much time.
Yes, of course. So yeah, this space is just about having important conversations. I'm the owner of Create Consent Culture, which is a support group that started in undergrad with Christina. The support group was essentially a space for survivors to get their voice back, and just going through the journey of survivorship in general. Once I graduated, I wanted to find a way to bring this important conversation into the community by talking about why consent is important. So I did that through apparel. I'm currently in school getting my master's in social work, and so this work just feels very near and dear to my heart. And I just wanted to have this space to have conversations about things that are super important. So not just consent related, because I believe that therapy is also a big part of my journey and how I've been able to get here and be comfortable talking. And so yeah, that's why we're here. Today I'm going to be interviewing Stephanie Mejia.
Hey. I'm gonna just share a little bit about myself, and we're gonna go with that. So my name is Stephanie. I am a clinical social worker. So I am a therapist, is what that means. I graduated about 6 years ago from graduate school. I went to UNC School of Social Work, and in those 6 years, what I've been doing is providing mental health services to children up to age 5, so really early mental health services. And about 4 years ago, I started working at a group private practice and doing therapy primarily to work with mothers and folks who can give birth. And that's where my interest in perinatal mental health started. And then 2 years ago, I started my own private practice, which I run part-time. So I'm a business owner, and I still work in the community as a mental health provider because both things matter to me. I would like to do full-time private practice this upcoming year. So y'all just send the good vibes for that, because it's not easy out here. But yeah, I'm a DJ. I throw parties in Durham, and I DJ with 3 other women of color, and we focus on music related to kind of like the music that we heard our mothers play in their kitchen. I come from a Latino background, so my mother is from a country in Central America called Nicaragua, and my dad is from the Caribbean, from a country called Dominican Republic. So I kind of have these stark things that I identify with as someone who's Caribbean and also Central American. And I was born and raised in New York City. So that's another thing. I'm a New Yorker, so that kind of paints the picture. And I'm a survivor, so that's also why I'm here.
Yay, we're so glad to have you here. As you can see, while I was very interested in having Steph, because Steph has been a supporter of Creators in Culture when it was Worthy Women NC. In fact, I remember a time when we were having a legal battle with Shaw, and he jumped in my DM and was like, do I need to write a letter? Do I need to say? She was in her law bag. I said, wow, I love her. So, yeah, just a full circle moment to like be sharing space with someone who's works in the same area of interest that I have. And so we'll just jump right into it. And start with, well, you already gave your name, so your credentials.
Licensed clinical social worker.
Okay. And then, let's see, what drew you to this specific profession?
I feel like a lot of people may relate to this in the social work field, which is like you probably have already been a social worker in your family system or in your community, or like have done things that kind of pull you into the field. So I grew up with a single mom who was an immigrant who came when she was 25 to this country. And I saw how much my mom had to kind of struggle being in this country. And so I was kind of like always aware there's something wrong with how the world functions. I just didn't have the language. So I think once I went to undergrad and did sociology and was like learning a lot about these systems, I became really interested in how can I influence the systems, or how can I try to chip at it a little bit, because we need people that are change makers and are trying to make things a little bit different. So I just really feel like I was called from an early age.
In the first interview with Courtney, she also stated that me and her were like just born social workers. And I think that's so true, because even when you tell someone that you're in this field, they're like, what? Oh, you must have a lot of patience. And it's like, we're dealing with the things that everybody deals with. We're just in the forefront of that, and like wanting to be the person that changes the future for us. So I think that's always interesting when people are like, wow, why would you do that? And I'm like, so somebody has to change the system.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be in the front and like do the work. So
Yeah.
I do feel like I was kind of called into this just by my own life.
Yeah.
And like I was speaking to you about earlier, I feel like it's interesting when you're meeting clients and their story is so similar to yours. And you're like, wow, this is why I'm here. So I guess that goes into my next question of just like, in the first interview segment, we talked about just how consent is important in the practice in general. So if you wanted to just give a little background, like how important is it to you when working with clients to like foster that consent and build rapport with them?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like people are the experts in their own experiences, and unfortunately social work, the way it became social work, was very much like a field that was centered in like saving people, and I feel like that is not the type of social work that I want to practice. So I want to make sure that with the people I work with, they have as much choice as they can have, and that they feel empowered to make decisions about how they live their life, and then also how they engage with therapy. So consent is really central, especially because I primarily work with people who are marginalized, whether it be the LGBT community, whether it be children of immigrants, whether it be Black and brown folks. I find that making sure that I'm not showing up in the space as like, I'm gonna tell you what you need to do, or this is how you need to think about it, or I'm the expert in your experience is really important. So giving them space to be authentically them, and then when I'm building that connection with them, like I feel like people can read if you're authentic and genuine versus when like you're feeding them the BS.
Yeah, something you just read.
But also I think connection is really important. Like you have to know how to connect in this field, and you have to know how to let your authentic self come in as well, and do so in an ethical way. So yeah, so I think just like making sure people have choice in their
I
treatment.
think that kind of goes into my next question of what is your approach to therapy, because I know that you offer a few different types of services, so I just want to know more about the services that you offer when you are in your sessions.
Yeah, so in my full-time job, I do play therapy. So because I'm working with such young children, a lot of the ways in which we connect is through play. And believe it or not, the play itself is going to tell you a lot about what these kids are going through, whether that be, different traumas that they maybe have gone through, or also just like overall issues with their families or inconsistencies in their communities. I feel like that play therapy piece is such an important way because it gives a voice to children, and I think that in society we don't often provide that to children, the opportunity to have a voice. There's always an adult or some sort of authority figure making those choices for them. So I feel like the play therapy gives them the capacity to at least express themselves freely through that. While I don't do in my part-time practice, I don't do play therapy right now, but I do work with mothers. And the reason why that is because I find that the connection between a birthing parent or a parent who's raising children and those children is really important and valuable. And those early years in someone's life really play a role in how the rest of your life is going to go. The types of attachments that you have with people, who's there for you, who you can trust, who has your back, all those things really matter. So I'm really interested in figuring out how to strengthen the relationship between mothers and their children, but also going through the movement of like a lot of mothers figuring out their own relationship with their mothers. Now that they're mothers, they're like, oh, okay, wait, hold on. My mom did this, my mom didn't do that, I have issues with my mom, and so I'm really interested in also like that connection.
I was also curious about when you're doing a play therapy session, is it something between just you and the child, or are the parents involved in that part of it as well?
Yeah, I like to do both because like sometimes when you're working with a child one-on-one, they're gonna express things to you in certain ways. Like I've worked with children who have a lot of fears of like nighttime, for example, or a lot of fears of potty training. And through the actual play therapy, they're showing you why they're scared, or they're showing you what they're worried about. So it's important to have that one-on-one time. And then I feel like at the end of the day, these kids live in homes where their caregivers are there, and if they're not involved, it's gonna possibly impact, no, not possibly, it will impact the child.
Deal with maybe a family that's coming to you for the first time, and that's like just really unaware with like how it works.
So like in my full-time job, all of the families that I work with right now are Spanish-speaking families. And the majority of them are people that arrived in this country within the last few years, or are like their parents are the first generation living here. So I find that dealing with a lot of like myths around therapy and also myths around being a social worker, because I think a lot of people don't realize that social workers who are licensed clinical social workers can do therapy, and most people think that social workers are like CPS workers. So there's a lot of myths, and also there's been a lot of harm that's been done historically, so we can't ignore that and then not worry about why families are really sometimes resistant or worried about letting someone who they don't know in their house, and like, so I feel like the way I try to navigate that is by relationship building, is by respecting the rules and the way that people do things in their home. Like, I'm not about to come in here and be like, well, what you need to do, let me tell you how you need to do this. It's like really meeting them where they're at, is also really listening to what it is that they're seeing and what they're experiencing. And also about just like slowly putting little seeds of like, maybe therapy isn't bad. Maybe therapy isn't something scary. Maybe therapy is something that you get something good out of as well. So they learn how to maybe trust me, but as a result, maybe to trust services that a future social worker may be able to give them too.
Yeah, also, I think you mentioned this in the last interview too, but one of my therapists early on told me, like, if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, then you should definitely not be seeing them. And I think that even when it comes to me, like, having sessions, even though this is like a new thing to me, I'm learning so much about just going to different people's homes and like seeing how they do things, but also just being really flexible to like change the way that I think about things because other people has a whole different interpretation. So I was interested in how your upbringing shaped your role as a therapist, and also wanted to know how you ended up on this side of the world being a New York girl.
Okay, so what influenced me to become a social worker?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep it real simple. Poor brown kid of immigrant parent. Like I feel like that colored my world a lot. And I feel like when I went to social work school and was sitting in classes with people who had such different experiences than I did, some of which never experienced certain systemic inequalities in society, I was like real confused, like what are you doing here? But also I find that the few people of color at the primarily white institution I went to that were there, I think all kind of carried their own stories with them. I wanted to be a nonprofit executive director before this. I was like, I'm gonna go the leadership route. Like I was like, we talked about how we're both Cap moons. I was like, let me put my tie on, let me put my blazer on. Like I was ready to like be the lady. And then I realized that's not how I want to influence things, and that's not how I want to be part of what's in front of us as far as the systems that we're involved in. I think also just like living in New York City and seeing the experiences of my friends and seeing what their lives look like really played a big role. And then at like, what was it, 13, 14, I was like super depressed and like super like anxious, and at that point I just feel like I didn't have the language of what it's like to go through my own mental health services. And so I feel like that really influenced me as well, just being like, oh, you can have positive experiences with people that provide safety and consistency to you and are trained to kind of support you in whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that is a mouthful, especially coming from a small town, growing up in a small town. Me and Courtney both grew up in Greenville, North Carolina, and there's like nothing out there, and we often reflect on like just life there and how there's not really much for the youth to do but get in trouble, unless you're like us. We were having concerts in her backyard, had 2 parties, playing school, and like just I guess had things to focus on that kept us out of the path of trouble.
Yeah.
And so like even having my first therapy experience in college was like my family didn't understand, like, what do you mean you're going to therapy? And I'm like, well, I mean, I did experience a very traumatic thing before leaving Greenville, so I didn't even know how much it impacted me until I was just sitting down years later and like telling my life story. I'm like, wow, I really went through a lot of shit. And so I feel like my upbringing also makes me want to be here. It makes me want to like make a difference for others. And just realizing, I actually remember in one of my own sessions, my therapist asked me, what's your family's mental health history? And I'm like, well, if you let them tell it, nobody has anything. But that's not true. And I feel like if more people actually got the knowledge of like diagnosis and just mental health in general, we probably could be better off as a family unit. So one of the questions that I wrote down were, what are some of the common mental health disorders among the Latino community? And like, what do you see most with the people that you're working with?
I still have anxiety and depression, to be honest. A lot of PTSD. I think a lot of their issues, if we're looking at the axis of cultural influence and mental health, I think I often see issues based off of acculturation and assimilation of like sometimes kids growing up in this country and not necessarily feeling like they fit into American culture, but also not necessarily feeling like they fit into like Latino culture. And there's always a lot of diversity within the Latino culture as well. So I know that in the South, there's like big communities that are Honduran or El Salvadorian or Mexican. But like I grew up in New York City where there was like a lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Dominicans, Venezuelans, like stuff like that. So I think sometimes the differences play a big role in how like these diagnoses that I see come about. But it really is like a universal experience of like the anxiety, depression, the trauma.
And then I also wrote down, what are some of the common perceptions that clients may make about therapy in your experience? So do you feel like you have the resistance to like a family to start to work with you? And just like what the experience is like from kind of them coming into you and then being discharged from you?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people with the communities I've worked with, I still see these ideas of therapy is for crazy people. I mean, my mom still says shit like that, and you know, like my mom's she's about to turn 60 as a Virgo this month, and so it's like if she's saying that, and she's just my mom's generation, there's a lot of people that I'm seeing that say things like that. And if they're not saying it, they're being influenced by it. So it's like a lot of shame to go to therapy. So they're having to work through like, my mom doesn't know, or my family doesn't know that I'm in therapy. And it's very hush hush still. And I think that what I see mostly is the empowerment of admitting I'm in therapy and it's normal. Like normalizing that experience. Also feeling empowerment and making that choice for themselves versus like feeling like, oh, everyone has said I should be in therapy, so I guess I'll go, versus, oh, I'm choosing to go and continue this journey, and I know there's always maybe something that I can continue building upon, or I find out about myself and I'm gonna work on next. So I think the shame of therapy lessens perhaps to some degree. Yeah. And also I think I like to work with a lot of first-time therapy people, because I think what it does is that it helps them see how their future relationships with other therapists could look like. That is if you like build that good rapport and that healthy connection.
Yeah.
You know?
I definitely feel like I'm probably like with my third therapist right now in terms of like transitioning from college to like early adulthood after the pandemic. And I feel like I'm also amazed at how much I've changed and like just the different transitions that I've been through with every therapist. But I feel like I feel very supported by people close by me that kind of like cheer me on to go to therapy, because I feel like even someone that's like desiring to be in this field, it can still be hard to like unload your own shit. And I'm just really glad to like be in a time where like it's a conversation we having right now. Yeah. And so my last question is, being that you deal with a lot of people's emotions on a daily, like how do you take the time for self-care? Like what does that look like for you, and how do you prioritize yourself after giving so much of yourself away?
Well, I do have my own therapist I go to, and I started my therapy process again in 2017. So at this point, she is my 4th therapist. But I love her. She's like yoga teacher, into like astrology, into like tarot cards. I love my little metaphysical baddies. Like such a thing for me. But you know, I think self-care, it kind of comes in like waves. And I think I'm in the down part of the wave, which is I don't know what to do to help myself, and that's very human. And it's very real when you're a space holder in the ways that, you know, several people in this room probably are. But I try to find my way back because I don't want to, number one, cause myself harm, but number two, most importantly, cause my patients, my clients that harm. So I feel like a a way that I would like to think about that question is, what do you do to sustain yourself in the work, or what do you do when you feel like you're not doing a good of the job? I got a massage this morning.
Ooh, I love that for you.
I did cupping. Have y'all ever done cupping?
No.
Like,
Yeah, I like to.
remember? The person I went to is fantastic. She did this like crazy jaw and neck thing on me, and I was telling her how like my throat chakra feels sometimes very like silenced, and she did that, and I was like, ooh, I was like, there's a lot of tension there. She was telling me, and I could feel it. So I feel like body work is primarily the way that I want to connect more to self-care. Somatically doing these things, dancing, being creative, like sitting there and pulling my tarot cards, or like having a spiritual practice. You know, sometimes it's as simple as setting a vibe in my room, like turning on some incense and a candle, and I'm just gonna sit in bed and read. I'm up to book number 45 of the year. I went from not reading at all.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, so it's a big flex for me.
Yeah.
Because that graduate school burnt me out.
Hello.
So I just started reading for pleasure again.
Hello.
You know?
I'm in that space too, where I'm like, okay, I got this book reading app, and it's really motivating me to just want to know everything. And I feel like, especially being someone that's dealing with people all day and talking all day, I have to find an escape from that, because like TV ain't working no more. And so I'm just like, half the time when I get off, I don't want to watch anything. I want to sit in silence, or I want to listen to a book, or I want to actually flip some pages. And so, yeah, I think that it's interesting when I ask that question to people, because we're like, self-care, self-care, self-care. And I feel like for the helpers of the world, it's like, I don't feel like we have to make that opportunity to like take the time for ourselves. So I love that you got a massage today, because that's what I need to do. But yeah, I don't have any other questions for you, but I just want to thank you for being here and open the floor to anybody else that may have a question or want to know something about your work in general. Do you have any questions for Steph?
I think you did a really good job with like answering all the questions and giving details to your life and your work. So I just want to say I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, y'all.
Yeah. Oh, are you taking new clients?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
yay!
yeah. I
You've
mean,
taken therapist to people. We know that.
I'm full.
look, that's one step closer to what you want to do.
Yeah,
So that's good.
doing it full time.
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Yeah, so if y'all want to see my website, the business name is Healing Seeds Therapy.com. So y'all can see my website, which I think I'm very proud of as someone who's never built a website out.
Yeah, you two look good. I love the colors.
I was like, I'm gonna be a little branding on my branding shit.
But thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's very like informal. I don't want y'all to feel like y'all have to ask questions,
Yeah.
but I always want to leave the floor for questions to be asked if y'all would like. So yes, thank you for being here. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a hug for taking the time out of your day to share with us. And I hope to see y'all at another one. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this segment of Coffee and Consent virtually. It has been a challenge to get more comfortable with like filming this, and I'm still trying to work out the kinks and like figure out what works best. But I'm just happy to share these conversations with you, because no matter how it's filmed, no matter the technical difficulties that go into it, the importance is that I get the message out. And I'm just so happy to recap with you guys and to bring you along on this journey of following my plan, God's plan for me, building up this brand and having this platform to promote positive, healthy relationships among, you know, friends, families, peers, co-workers. Like, I believe in my vision for a culture of consent so bad that I will not stop talking about it. I'm gonna shout it from the mountaintops. And I just, you know, pray that my legacy lives on beyond me. Thank you so much for being here. My next Coffee and Consent segment will be taking place in October, and I will be interviewing a sex therapist, which I'm very, very excited about. So yeah, I hope to catch up with you guys later. Please follow me on Instagram, Create Consent Culture, NC _ I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'll leave it in the comment section. But also, if you're interested in just knowing more about what I'm doing or have certain questions, feel free to leave comments down below. If you have suggestions of things that I can talk about on this channel, things that you want to hear me talk about, leave a comment below. And I'll see you guys in the next vlog. Bye.